on Saturday, October 28th, the 4th edition of Next Talks for the Future Generation conference will take place at the Trinity Christian College. One of the key speakers will be Mr. James Robaczewski, the president of Polish Roman Catholic Union of America. James, thank you so much for coming over.
Thank you for asking me. I appreciate the offer.
Thank you so much for being one of the speakers. The purpose of the conference is to tell the Polish American youth about stories of people who have accomplished a lot in their lives, and you're the perfect example of that.
Oh, thank you. Embodiment. Thank you.
You're the leader of Polish Roman Catholic Union. We'll get to that organization in a minute, but I want to start from the very, very beginning. And you mentioned in your autobiography that you're a fifth-generation Polish American. How far back can you trace your ancestry?
I can trace the ancestry on my side, from my father's side, back to about 1880 of immigrating to the United States. My great-grandfather was born in Cook County, Illinois in 1881. So the assumption is at least 1880 or 1879, my great-great-grandparents emigrated here. They're actually from, you always say it wrong, Turin?
Okay.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Turin, Poland. I found that out in, my great-grandfather was born in 1855. Wow. So they came here about 1880. My great-grandfather Tomasz was born in Cook County, as I said. His wife, my eventual great-grandmother, was born in Chicago in 1883. And it's interesting with her, I have a copy of her handwritten birth record. And it was interesting because of the partitioning in Poland and being a Polish people here and here, but not nationally.
Yeah, not officially on paper.
Not officially on paper. Her, on her birth record that I have, and it's a nice handwritten piece of paper, her maiden name was Fornikowski, but they finished it off with S-K-I-E, so it was like Germanicized.
Yeah.
And then, but her mother's nationality was not Polish or German, it was Catholic.
Oh, really? They used it as a nationality?
They used it as a nationality on there, and then they put it on that she was born in Deutschland. So they were coming from the Prussian partition. So we can trace the first Robaczewski generation being born here in 1881, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
My dad's side, my grandfather was one of 13 children. He was the oldest of 13. He was born in 1903. They grew up in the shadows of St. Stanislaus Kostka. And back then, nobody moved far. So they stayed. If you're a North Sider, you stayed at St. Stan's Kostka area, and they immigrated further up to like where St. Hedwig in Bucktown is. Eventually, that's where I grew up. My parents were both from the Bucktown neighborhood, and I lived the first almost 20 years of my life on the corner of Armitage and Hoyne in Bucktown. On my mother's side, that's more recent. I'm third generation. It's my Jadek, we called him Judge. My Judge was born in 1901 around Rzeszów, and they immigrated here about what we figure about 1906, 1907. And my grandmother, she came over as about a 5-year-old in 1913. And they settled in, my mother's side of the family settled in East Chicago, Indiana. And so we never understood how my grandparents met, because my Judge was in Chicago and she was in East Chicago. So I have no idea. But they had their own business. They were I attribute a lot of my Polishness to my mom's side of the family, because we lived in the same building. But some people don't understand, there was a 3-flat. They owned the building, lived on the first floor. We lived on the 3rd floor. My dad and mom, when they got married, the apartment was available, and that's where we were. We lived there. They lived there from 1955 until we sold it in 1984. We sold the building. But they had a Wendlina. So my grandparents were sausage makers. That's what they had. For 42 years, they had the same location, a little store on 2012 Armitage, and the rest is history. Then I came about and grew into the same grammar school as my parents. One story is I had the same 4th grade teacher as my mother did, Sister Patience. She came back 30 years to teach me 4th grade. So
that is, I think, one of the biggest differences between then and now. Now people move a lot.
Yes.
Then once they planted the roots, they stay.
They were there, and that's it. And like I said, having the store on the same block as where they lived.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, my mother was born at 2008 Armitage, and then when she was 8, they moved to 2042, and then when my parents got married, they lived at 2042. Yeah. So she's lived 49 years, the first 49 years of her life on the same block.
How important is it for you to have the Polish ancestry, to call yourself Polish American?
It's great. You embrace it. It's important. I think everybody needs, even if you get washed out down the ways, you still hold on to your a nationality. Like for me, we're 100% Polish on both sides. But sometimes you hear people, especially we're in the position I am at with the company I work for now, we get some people calling and say, "Oh, there just are no more Polish people around here anymore." And it's like, no, they are. I mean, what I tell people is that you're Polish, you just don't know it yet. And as a matter of fact, one of my niece-in-law, they live in Omaha, Nebraska, and we don't see them that often. And we were at a family doing, and she goes, Uncle Jim, I think I'm Polish. I think I have Polish blood. I said, really? I said, and I told her the same thing. Everybody is. Don't worry about it. And they were driving home to Omaha, Nebraska, and she texted me on the road that she had talked to her mom and sent me the name of her Polish side of the family. Confirmed there is. Now I just have to do more research on her side to see, see what goes from there. But you have to embrace it. It's great culture.
Yeah.
And you embrace the happy times. You have to embrace the sad times, but more important, you embrace the happy times and what we do, and just being Polish and being proud that you can say you're Polish, especially after 140 years.
Exactly. Now we can focus more on you. And again, I want to start from the very beginning. Do you remember, like 10, 12 years old, Jim Robaczewski? What were his dreams? Who did he want to be at that moment?
Well, I always want to be a Chicago Cub. So
ball player.
I want to be a baseball player. But growing up, you want to be. One time wanted to be a fireman.
Okay.
Because it looked like a great job. You're saving lives. You're helping people. Never did I think I'd be in the insurance business. So I will tell you that right now. You don't think that dream when you as a child or anybody's dream that they're going to do this as an 8-year-old or a 7-year-old. It's going to change, and you're going to go down different paths. You're going to go down and see how different things happen, and you don't have to stay on that same career path your whole life. Yeah, I've jumped around from job to job, and I've settled in 13 years now at PRCUA, but I've been in retail. I've done title insurance searching. I've done banking. I've done marketing. I've done frontline supervisor for utility. I was an at-home dad, and I worked for the Archdiocese of Chicago as well as a business manager at a church for a few years. So I've had a little touch of everything, and you could draw that in and take all those different paths and make them all come to one place, and you can use all that information in whatever you do.
Yeah, expand your network, get more experiences.
Get more experiences, because some people, and God bless them, I'm going to be an accountant, and they be an accountant and they do it for 50 years. Hopefully they're happy. But there's so many other life experiences to go out there and do. And don't forget to have fun when you do it. And to create the opportunity to have fun. And don't just be so entrenched in your work that you don't have a hobby or you don't have outside things to volunteer at and do things with. I mean, I and my wife as well, we were blessed with parents who volunteered. So that's in your blood. So, who needs to help? Who needs to volunteer? Well, let me see what my calendar looks like, and I can go and help you if I got nothing going on. And so we volunteer at my boys' high school. I coached grammar school basketball for 5 years, from 4th grade to 8th grade. And I'm not a great basketball player, but you were there because they need someone to help out, and you do share your knowledge with the kids, and
you give an example,
right? And then that's it. You give example that this is the thing to do. This is the thing to go forward with. And like I said, career-wise, my first job was I worked at a bank, and I was told at first I was going to be hired, and then I was told I wasn't going to be hired because I had no cash handling experience. And I said, okay, well, I'll just try somewhere else. And then they got another call back saying, no, 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 there's another job. And I started out as a mail clerk messenger at a bank. And so we would process mail and do deliveries. And then my manager saw I had some kind of potential. And she, after a 3-month review, she's like, why do you keep going home early? I said, because the other guys do. I don't know what else I could do. She goes, well, come back. We'll show you how to do this. We'll show you how to do research work. We'll show you how to do this. 3 years later, at the age of 21, I had keys to the bank and a passcode to override the security system. And it's like, and it was just, I was 21, 22 years old. And my boss was like, well, here's keys, you know, because I was running the document processing system 3 years later that we had installed.
Isn't that the case, that it's okay to start a low-level
job?
Yeah, do your job good and be recognized and promoted.
Right, get your foot in the door and be aggressive, but don't like go aggressive. Yeah. Be aggressive because you want to learn and you want to do something. Any job you can learn stuff and take it to another place. And then you also learn what not to take to other places. Because like, you know, you could have a great manager, you could have a bad manager. And so you try to take from the good, and then if you have somebody that you don't understand how they got there or what they got there, you can ignore their management experience, but still there might be something good out of it after all down the road, but just absorb as much as you can. And an entry-level job doesn't always mean entry-level job. There's always ways to move up. Like I said, I started mail clerk messenger, keys to the bank. When I worked for Levi Strauss & Company, I started out as a support person to a manager, and I did all the paperwork. I processed expense reports. We had a program, it was a merchandise coordinator program that we had 13 people around the country, and my account with Levi's was Sears. And so some people might not know who Sears is anymore, but they were the second largest retailer at one time. And our people would go and merchandise our product, Docker's brand and Levi's brand, in the stores. And give seminars, product updates, make sure everything looked perfect. And there's one of the examples that after 6 months, my boss said to me, so Jim, here's your 6-month review. You're doing well. Where do you see yourself in 6 months? And not in 6 months. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I said, Mike, your job. And he looked at me like, yeah, okay, sure. Well, I didn't get it in 5 years. I got it in 6 years, but the job didn't exist 5 years later. So I got it when they reestablished it. So I was managing the program I helped set up 6 years prior.
Wow. Awesome.
And going out, and that was going out meeting store managers all across the country and visiting all these, as my account was Sears, visiting all these Sears stores across the country. So,
and that's not the only one Fortune 100 company that you work with. You also have experience with AT&T, am I correct?
Yes, I worked for AT&T. Back then it was Ameritech and SBC Global Network. Wow. But they changed the name 3 times in the 3 years I was there. But I worked there, and I started off as a forced load manager, came in with no telephone experience, was hired for my management experience, and doing some effective things to build the confidence. I had a department of 3, and they were ladies who were there for 30 years, between 25 and 30 years. They were just being beat up by other managers in the center I was at, and I was there to be their protector. And that's basically what I told them, and didn't deflect, but gave proof that they said my department wasn't working, and gave proof back to the management team that no, mine was. You guys are all not working. But I worked out there, and I worked, that was a hard job, because then they transferred me, after a year and a half, they transferred me to an installation and repair garage.
Wow. And
not knowing anything about a phone and how to install a phone line, they had to send me out to training up to Wisconsin for how to install a phone, because he had to come back and
you gotta know what you manage.
Right. But I told my crew straight out, I said, I've never done this. You're going to teach me.
Yeah, come with your experience.
Right. Come with you. And I come with my experience of managing people. You're going to show me how this works. And I got more respect from you get more respect from your staff and your fellow managers when you say, I don't know. Teach me. Show me what I'm doing wrong. Be honest and open in your career path that I don't understand what you're doing. I don't understand how this is working, but help me.
I'm professional. I'm willing to learn. I'm going to admit what I don't know.
Right. And if you make it here, this is the biggest thing. That was a serious look. But the biggest thing is, if you make a mistake,
own it.
Own it.
Yeah.
Don't say, well, it was Wuko's, it's his fault. It's like, no, I made a mistake. And that was the one thing I learned at Levi's. I had, again, I was working with Sears, second largest account. And I was working with a person in our marketing department out in San Francisco, where the home office was, and did everything verbal. Never followed up with an email, never followed up with anything else. And the graphics never got ordered. And so when they were due in the store, they weren't there. Who got called on the carpet?
Where's the paper trail?
Right. And so I got called in to my boss and the people from Sears, and they said, and I said, well, I talked to the man. I did this. We did it. Do you have follow-up? Do you have anything? And all my boss looked at me and she said, who was responsible for getting the graphics there? And again, I said, well, me.
Yeah.
And that's all my fault. She goes, and all I told her, I said, and she's my favorite boss of all time. So I told her, I said, to the best of my ability, this will never happen again.
And I guess it did.
It didn't.
Yeah.
So, and she was, here I am, 6 foot tall, 200 plus pounds, and this little, like 5'6", not even 5'6", 5 foot little blonde lady scared the bejeebers out of me. She was like, and I went from being afraid of her to having most respect for her, and we got along well. And the hardest thing for her, as she was one that had to lay me off.
Wow. And
she's like, this is harder for me because I like you as a person and you're doing a really good job, but your job's been eliminated.
Those moments will come always in everybody's life.
Oh, yeah.
We have to be ready to handle them.
Right. And you just, that one was, that was at Levi's. And I said, okay, what do? I'm traveling tomorrow, but I can't, because I traveled almost every week. And this was pre 9/11. So you could just get on a plane. Yeah. And so what we did is, she said, I have one more trip this week. And I said, then I'm not going to travel anymore. But I said, but I will do anything you want me to do in this office. So I was closing up files, doing things, packing things up. We had an office move because we had a restructuring. And so one of my jobs, I told her, I'll move all the computer equipment. So I had jeans and a t-shirt, and I'm crawling underneath desks, and I'm doing, moving computer equipment around. And from one cube, you were going to that cube, and then I took the person who was coming to your cube and moved it. Because that was, you felt part of the family too, because it was a great place to work. And after it all is the atmosphere of the office of anything.
Hey, how is the corporate world? Because right there at Levi and at AT&T, those are huge corporations, and some people are afraid of going into that big corpo world.
Well, like I said, it was going to. I'll speak on Levi's first. Levi's was. It's multinational. It's worldwide.
Yeah. Headquarters across the country.
Our headquarters were in San Francisco, but we had LSI Europe, LSI Asia.
Wow.
So everything we were all over the place. When I just started there, just a side note, they opened up a finishing plant in Poland. Oh. So one of my bosses came, so you're going to Poland? I said, I've been here 6 months. You want to get rid of me already? And but I lost track. I'm sorry, but
in a corporation,
you start off small. And you don't know anybody, but that's also knowing how to speak to people, knowing how to communicate,
being part of the structure. I think
being part of the structure. I walked in fresh off the street. I knew one person in the office when I worked at Levi's. She's the one who told me about the job. She's been a friend for life, but I had to learn how to deal with. I had 3 national account managers I dealt with on a regular basis. I had 20-some people in just the office suite I was in. And then there's another office suite for our regional office. So I had to go learn all those people. And it just takes time, and you have to be open. You have to, words of advice to young people, put the phone down and talk to people. I hate to sound like an old guy, but you can't talk to people and you got to look them in the eye. You work your way up, and then people know who you are. I dealt with people in San Francisco on the phone all the time because I was tracking expense reports, and I had to send that all to San Francisco, tracking paperwork for new hires, things like that. So you slowly build up that relationship. I worked for the old Midway Airlines at one time too, and so I worked on the ramp for about 1.5 years, and I worked in administrative office for 1.5 years, and I would have to break down people's walls so they would help me out.
Yeah, those people skills.
Yeah, and it just, you're nice to them, and even though they say, "Oh, that person, he or she, you'll never get through to them." That's the challenge. You get through to them, and you talk to them. You're nice to them. You say, "Hi, how's it going? How's this?" Oh, and you get to know people. It's all communication. Be successful in your career. It's communication, and there's a book out there. It's from 2005, but you have to be liked. And if somebody likes you, they'll listen to you so much more.
They'll respond to you.
They'll respond to you.
And if you ask for something,
right? Yeah, they're more willing to cooperate you if you're likable. So true. And that's part of your marketing yourself. Be likable. We'll progress up to PRCUA. I'll just go right to PRCUA. I've been active at I've been a member of PRCUA for 52 years.
You know, we're going to get back to that because I'm not focused on the PRCUA aspect.
Okay.
And ask a few questions about that. Let's shift to the education, because your education path was a little unorthodox, right?
Yes. I went straight out of high school to college. I went 3 years full-time to college, and I wasn't getting anything out of it. I'd rather work. And so had to sit down with my mom. My mom's like, "Well, if you're going to do that, if you're not going to go to college, you have to go work full-time." So I went to get a job, but I did have an agreement that I would continue when I could afford a class. And so it took me 18 years. 18 years. 18 years. I graduated when I was 35. And I just took classes sporadically. Sped up my education was when I was downsized from Levi Strauss and Company. I took my separation package, and that went towards my tuition. I went to DePaul University. So I finished up my tuition, and I paid off the last 6 classes. And it was kind of fun because I had electives left, basically. So I could take what I wanted. And I took one class, and it was the American government. And I tell the story to everybody. The girl in front of me, we had to introduce ourselves. The girl in front of me, she's like, "Oh, my name's Jennifer, and I'm 17. And I haven't voted yet. And I want to see what people learn more about the American government. And I'm next." And I said, "Well, I'm Jim. I'm 35. I've been voting since before she was born. and I just want to see how you guys think." Because being a totally almost 2 generations back, them being 17 and 18 and me being 35, we wanted to see how they thought. And it was great interaction. And it was great going to college advice from a guy who took 18 years to go to college. Don't be afraid to talk, just answer questions in class. As a 35-year-old, super comfortable because I didn't care what anybody else thought about me. And as one teacher I had, unfortunately I was 2 years older than him, he said, "I like you being in the class, Jim, because I know when you know the answer, but you don't blurt it out right away. You wait to hear what everybody else says if they can do it." And then he calls on me, and I give him my answer, and he goes, "And your answer is well thought out." I'm thinking, yeah, because I'm 2 years older than you, Doctor such and such. But it was not a regular path, and that might not be for you either. You might want to go into the trades. You want to do anything. So a lot of people are getting pressured to go to college. And I'm not saying don't go to college,
but it's not a must.
But it's not a must. You may be handy, and you could go be a carpenter. You can go be a pipe fitter. You can go do anything, and it's honest work.
Some people travel. Some people want to travel. Take a year off, see what's out there, make sure that they're going to make the right decision.
Right. And you know what? Even though if this is going to younger people, you may think your parents don't know what they're talking about, but listen to them because they are kind of smart. They've been around a long time. So I have a 17 and a 19-year-old. So we go down the road. From experience. Yeah, we go down the roads. Go, yeah, okay, whatever you think. That might I don't agree, but go ahead. Okay. You'll see I might be right.
Nice. Let's focus on the Polish Roman Catholic Union of America, PRCUA Life.
Okay.
That's the organization you are involved with since
I was 7.
Wow.
I started off in a dance school. So if you're I danced I gave up dancing for my basketball career. So I danced for about 3 or 4 years. My mom was a school director for the Polish Roman Catholic Union, the school that used to practice in our social hall, in our building. I started, not that I started dancing because I said, Mom, I want to dance. My father passed away when I was 7. And so my 15-year-old brother really didn't want to watch me every Saturday. So Mom dragged me to dancing school. And so as long as you're here, go dance. Okay. So I did that. You know, it was fun. Basketball practice was Saturday mornings too. So I talked her into letting me go to basketball practice and gave up my dancing career. Maybe I should have kept my dancing career going because my basketball career kind of fizzled out after 5th grade. So, but I've been a member there. I with my mom being so active there, and after my dad passed away, my mom became an employee of the PRCUA. So she worked in the general office. So we always were in touch with PRCU and the Polish Museum and all that. Again, volunteerism. She was like #1 volunteer for the PMA one year and stuff like that. So we kept going, and I would go to all these different events with her. And the Polish Roman Catholic Union has 3 national flag bearers. So I was about 19 years old, and the person, they usually went, older gentlemen got these. So they kept them until they couldn't do it anymore. And so the one from District 7, which is the north side of the city, the northwest side, northwest side, he was retired. So one of the directors from the southwest side said, you know, she called me the kid. She goes, you know, the kid always goes to every place with you. Why don't you see if he wants to be, would think he'd want to be a flag bearer. So this director went and talked to the president at the time, which was Joseph Robaczewski Sr., and asked, said that they got this, there's Alice's son on the north side.
He's perfect, right?
He's perfect for it. So I get this call from his secretary. I'm 19 years old. Yes, Mr. Drubbett would like you to come down and talk to him. So I put a sport coat, 19, put a sport coat, tie, get in there and walk in and sat down in his office. And I don't know if I sat down. I think we just stood. He goes, here, you want to be a flag bearer? I said, yes, I do. That'd be very nice. He goes, you're the flag bearer.
Done.
That was it. And so that was a hard interview. So I did that for actually 27 years until I ran for secretary treasurer.
Yeah, and that is an important position. That's an executive position.
Oh, yeah. Secretary treasurer is like the chief operating officer of the company. It was great. It was a great job to walk into, not to walk into. We were voted into our positions. So you have to campaign and send out information on why you should get the job. When I ran the first time, I was third horse in a 3-horse race. One of the people who were running, she was coming off the board of directors. She was the favorite. Already experienced with the board. Another person, they knew him around. And then there's this, I was in my 40s, and so there's this kid. Yeah. And it's like, so I had to send out all my stuff, and you go to things, you talk to people, you sell yourself. It was a 3-horse race, and on the first ballot, nobody won. Because the person who came in first, the person who was on the board, she missed the majority by 3 votes. Okay, so you have to get like 50% of votes. 50 plus one. So she was short by 3. And I came in second. So then that's when the politicking begins. Okay. And I lost in that first round by 39. I won in the second round by 40. Wow. So because some people, it was 4 o'clock in the morning when the ballot was counted. So and so that was 13 years ago, and I was secretary treasurer for 8 years. My predecessor as president decided not to run for a 3rd term because we can do 3 terms. So I threw my hat in the ring there, and I got elected. So I've been there for 13 years. The secretary treasurer, like you have at the PNA, it's not combined. It's 2 different positions, but you're in charge of the building. You're in charge of the general office. You're in charge of everything. Making a lot of those day-to-day decisions. Right. Like when I was a secretary treasurer, we redid the facade of our building. So here I am in a shirt and tie climbing scaffolding on front of, it's a 50-foot tall building, 4 stories high. And it's like, Jim, we need you to pick out the mortar color for between, the mortar stuff between the bricks. I'm like, really? You guys can't do it? No. So here, shirt, tie, crawling up a ladder, crawling up the scaffolding. And it's like when you go to the eye doctor, is it better with this lens or this lens? This color or this color? And you're like,
it's a huge decision to make.
Yeah, and it's like, I like that one. He's like, good, we did too. And then the grout between our terracotta pieces, this color gray or that color gray? Really, they're like 2 shades difference.
But that's a prerogative of every manager. People will be coming to you and putting your stamp.
Right, putting your
everything.
Well, you picked this, you know.
Yeah,
that's what. Well, yes, I did. But it was going. But I mean, going from construction stuff to making decisions on helping out with a death claim, helping out with personnel problems, helping out with, and because the Secretary Treasurer has Treasury Department and our building auditing department, new business, general office, things like that. And so it's like, and being in charge of the building.
Yeah.
And we have a tenant upstairs, the Polish Museum, that we have to work with our tenants all the time. So,
to me, Polish Roman Catholic Union speaks about a legacy. And that's the first word that comes to mind when I think about PRCUA. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, because we've been around for so long.
Yeah, 150 years.
150 years. We're the oldest Polish organization in the country.
Yeah.
And I've been there for over 50, so I'm there a third of the time. But it's a legacy of, and you're handing down something from person to person. I always find it amazing. Back when we were founded, you know, now we have a convention every 4 years. Back then they had one every year.
And those are huge conventions.
Right. They had hundreds of people, you know, maybe 1,000. But just think, there weren't cars and airplanes.
Yeah.
There were trains and there were horses.
Horse carriages.
Horse carriages. And they're coming to Chicago or going to Hartford, Connecticut, all by this. And people took their time out to do it. And it would take you, what, 2 or 3 days to get there maybe? And then you're there for 4, you'd take 2 weeks for a convention. Now you try to get, I'm not saying anything, now you try to get people together for 3 days for a convention. It's
once every 4 years.
Once every 4 years, it's like pulling teeth. It's like, what? It's like, come on, just, it's part of, this is your part of your history part. Like you said, legacy, because you hand it down from generation to generation. Like I'm trying to get my boys involved. And they're, you know, they're at the age where kind of, sort of, but hopefully they'll take over. You know, they'll be interested. And it just trying to keep the fire burning.
Yeah,
you know?
Congratulations, because you're doing a great job. 150 years celebrations happened just, what, a couple of weeks ago?
2 weeks ago, yeah. That was 350 of our closest friends.
Yeah, so congratulations on
Thank
that.
you.
We everything there is to the Polish Roman Catholic Union for another 50, 100, 150 years. Which
I said I won't be there for the next 150, I don't think. But it's a part of the family. I tell everyone, I tell our office staff, I said, like it or not, you're part of my family. Because sometimes I spend more time with you people than I do with my family, because of extra obligations from being an officer in the company. Because it's a reception, a banquet, a this, a that, and traveling out of town to go to different things. I said, but you know, and my personality is like too, that I'm pretty easygoing and pretty easy to talk to, I think. And so I have no problem. My staff has no problem talking to me, asking me a question, asking me this, you know, and it's not that I'm not standoffish. I do my rounds in the morning when I get in. I put my bag down, hang up my jacket, and go say hi to everybody.
Talk to people.
And make my rounds throughout our whole office, and so everyone knows I'm there. Everyone knows, and they do. It's pointed out to me when I said, you know, you can come see us yesterday or the day before. It's like, sorry, I got caught up. I was in a meeting. So then I have to make sure I go see them first the next time. So.
Nice. People see you at all kinds of events. You always represent the company. So when people see James Robaczewski, they think president of Polish Roman Catholic Union. Who is James Robaczewski when he's not the president of PRCA? What are your hobbies, your interests? What do you do when you're not working?
Sleep. No, no, I'm active. Always been active, volunteering. My sons go to Notre Dame College Prep here in Niles. I'm currently the president of the Don's Dads Club, which is the fathers club for the school. So I've been doing that for this my 3rd year as the president. So you run the meetings there, you volunteer. My wife and I are volunteering at an event over the weekend at Notre Dame. Watch sports. Golf is the only participatory golf sport I do now. But you know, avid avid baseball fan, pretty avid football fan. I'll watch basketball and hockey.
Cubs, obviously, right?
There is no other team.
There's no other team.
So
Right?
sorry, all you Southsiders, but grew up a Cub fan. My dad was a Cub fan. It was kind of interesting. His dad was not a Cub fan.
Oh,
he was a White Sox fan.
Oh,
so we went. I can remember vividly. Again, my father passed away when I was little, when I was 7. But I remember at a Father's Day, my grandfather, my dad went up to, "What are you watching this junk for?" And he turned the channel and put on the Cub game. And my grandfather was like, "No, it's the White Sox." So it's that spending time with family.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, working with. In the past, I was the Cub master when my boys were Cub Scouts. I was Cub master for our Cub Pack for about 5 years. Mm-hmm. Volunteer on different councils at my parish. I've been on the parish council. I've been on the finance council. I like to garden, but I like to plant things and move things, as my family says. I don't weed, but I'll stand there going, "Yeah, we could move that bush. Let's dig it out." So I've always liked that. Trying to think what else I like to do.
Well, you work all the time.
Well, I like to read, but my problem is I start books and rarely finish them. So right now I have like 2 books started and maybe 3 books. And I leave the bookmark there and I pick it up where I left off, and it goes from lighthearted biographies to deep stuff. Yeah. And so I'd read. What else do I do?
Yeah, in one of our conversations, you mentioned once your family tradition of visiting presidents.
We do family road trips. Yeah, we started when my boys were about 6 or 7.
And that is a great idea.
Mm-hmm. We went to Springfield, and went to Abraham Lincoln's house and did the Capitol and did all that. And the boys wanted a bobblehead of Lincoln, bobblehead dolls. Yeah. And so we got them bobblehead Lincolns. And then we were walking around, and right across the old State House, there was a shop that had bobbleheads of like current presidents. And they said, "Oh, can we get this one?" And my wife and I thought on our feet real quick. We said, "No, you could only get a bobblehead if we go to a presidential site, a house, library, or museum." Mm-hmm. So from that point forward, even up until we didn't go on vacation this past summer, the summer before, and they're 17 and 16 at that time. 16 and 15. They still got their bobbleheads, but we've been to 29 presidential sites. We also do world's largest things in baseball. So that's all tied into the trip. So we've been to 29 presidential sites. We've been to Washington, Adams, Jefferson. We didn't go to Monroe. We went to Madison. Okay. We had a choice to go to James Monroe or James Madison, and they're both closing soon, so we took Madison. And then, but last summer we did 6 presidents.
Oh, wow.
We did went to Vermont, went to New England, so we covered from Vermont to Maine to Rhode Island, and unbeknownst to us, there were 6 presidents. We knew Kennedy and the Adams in Massachusetts, but didn't realize that Calvin Coolidge, Chester A. Arthur, and Franklin Pierce.
Wow.
The first 2 are from Vermont, and the last one was from New Hampshire.
This is a great project because you learn so much about history, geography, everything. And
they still get their bobbleheads if they're available, because not all presidents have bobbleheads. But and I pick up a biography. So this goes to my stack of books of 29 different presidential books sitting there that I have not read all of them yet. And then we do world's largest things.
Like, for example?
We've seen in Rhode Island, Providence, Rhode Island, it's the world's largest insect, but it's a metal insect on top of an exterminator. It's right along the highway. So you could drive along the interstate and you can see it from there. We're driving around the neighborhood trying to get a good picture. I said, why don't we just go down the highway, take a quick picture? So that's why we got a picture there. We've seen the world's largest wind chimes, world's largest rocker, world's largest, this all in one town in Illinois. Casey, Illinois, it's down closer to Terre Haute, Indiana. They decided to make all these world's largest things. So they've got, like I said, wind chimes, rocking chair, teeter-totter, world's largest pencil, mailbox, and they're all within 2 blocks of each other.
No.
Knitting needles and crochet hook. They're all down there. But we've seen in other parts of the country different things.
People talk about collecting experiences. This is exactly what it is.
Yeah, and then there is, you go type in on the internet world's largest things, and there's a website you could pull all this stuff up. So, but we always try to get a world's largest thing somewhere. World's largest ball of stamps. That's in Boys Town, Nebraska, and it was like an orphanage for boys, and Father Flanagan, who ran it, thought you could learn about geography and history through stamps. So all the excess stamps, it's a ball about this big of postage stamps. So, and seen weird things like the world's largest donut, and the world's largest lemon, and the world's largest donut is a donut store in California, and you drive through the whole of the donut. So, and then the last thing is baseball. So we always tie in some kind of baseball to some trip. So we've been to 12 or 13 different baseball parks, minor league and major league across the country.
Perfect. So, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, Jim Robaczewski, President of Polish Roman Catholic Union, one of the speakers of the 4th edition of Next Talks for the Future Generation Conference. We spent, 30 minutes roughly talking. At Next, you're going to have only 10.
It's going to be hard. I'll have to talk faster.
Yeah. But if you want to find out what Mr. Robaczewski will be talking about at Next, you got to be there. Trinity Christian College. October 28th, we will start at 9:30 sharp. So be there at 9. James, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.